Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. The splash screen lives, Trevor. As soon as you see me, hopefully you'll see me. As soon as you hear me, then please let me know. And also let me know if everything is working the way it should be working. Yeah, looks like I'm live. What do we got? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Let's see. I see there's some people here. That makes one thing. Okay, we got some comments going here. I just need a text confirmation in the chat that you can see and hear me relatively clearly. We have visual and audio. Thank you, Shiznuts. Welcome to an evolution of what's been happening in the world. My goodness gracious. I don't know where to begin here, except for I can say this. We are definitely, as a community, all in this together. All of our circumstances are different in some ways or another. I'm fortunate enough to have my immediate family all home. We're actually 7 in the house right now because there's a couple of other people. And we're just doing our best to stay away from everything, but just go out for essentials. So I've got 7 mouths to feed, including my own, a dog, a cat, and all that good stuff. So there you go. Just a shout out to everybody: Phil, Shiznuts, Gregory, Trevor, Chris, Montage Media Productions, Matt, Andres, Bad Karma, George. Hope you're doing all right over there, my friend. I don't know where this hour goes, but I think it's important for us all in our situation, regardless of where we are in the world, to use the platform that, in my opinion, in a lot of ways, has contributed to social distancing in the past in its own way. And I mean in your immediate area, the idea that you go and you reach out more into the world. But I think that social interactions in our general area tend to get negatively affected by the internet. Because even when we are socially interacting with other people in person, we're using devices all of the time. If you have children, I don't even need to tell you. You know how it all works. But now, more than ever, I think we need to use this platform, to use this to allow us to start to figure these things out, which a lot of us have no idea how it's going to play out. Yeah, so you have a delay. So when you say delay, are you getting a delay in terms of my audio, or are you getting a delay in the in terms of what? Looks like it's okay. Thanks, Matrix Therapy. I'm going to go ahead and just collapse a couple of windows here too, just because it's going to be a little less taxing on the system. So let me just do a couple of things to help with that and see if I can do as much as I can. The fan's running on this system. By the way, this space is sort of in transition. It was the music room, which is now going to, for the foreseeable future, get converted into kind of the home office. Yeah. You see what we type 30 seconds later. Well, that's okay. Okay, that should work out okay. One thing I do want to remind everybody, if you get something out of this channel, please, just the way we're supporting everybody, please subscribe if you're new. And if you've been watching for a while and you just haven't set and clicked that subscribe button, please do. And the other thing is, there's going to be some changes here because of all this stuff that's happening. And there will be a positive, I think, when it comes to the C47, because there's been some things I've been trying to do for, honestly, for years. And now we are putting in the infrastructure, foundation, everything else to do that. And that's going to have a lot to do with providing additional content. It's going to have a lot to do with providing additional services. And a lot of this is going to be geared towards the business community, corporate, and things like that. So we'll see where that all goes. Quick reminder, if you are in the chat, which if you're watching this, you are at least capable of being there, please use an @the_C47 if you have a particular question or you want to comment on something to me in person. And it's healthy for us to be using the chat to communicate with each other as well. But the best way, in my opinion, that live streams run, especially when you have just one person on this side, is when there's a dialogue going between us. So between each other in the chat, but also asking me questions, making comments. And again, the @the_C47 really helps me hone in on that when I'm looking at the screen over here. And when you're bringing stuff up. So really, the first thing is, again, to acknowledge the fact that everybody's situation is completely different. And part of that has to do with what country you're in, sometimes what province or state or region in terms of what the government has decided you can and cannot do. But one thing is 1,000,000% certain, and that is that our industry, video production, filmmaking, content creation, has been negatively, what the hell am I saying? Negatively impacted in ways that right now are very obvious in certain parts of it, and then they're not obvious at all because we have no idea how the long term plays out here. What we do know is that unless you're independently wealthy, that virtually every single person is sitting there stressed out and worried about how they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to pay their mortgage, their car payments. If you're here in the fine United States of America, how are you going to pay for your health insurance? And a lot of those questions have not been answered. And I think that it, again, will be regional in terms of what you can do. I said I'm not going to do politics, financial advice, and something else, probably religion. That wasn't what I said, though. But political is definitely one of them. But the reality is that what decisions are made at a state, province, regional, country level are going to have a long-term impact in terms of what kind of aid we can get and how our industry comes back. Good morning, David. So I'm just acknowledging the fact that for me, it's just as scary as it probably is for everybody else out there. I have a daughter in college. I have 2 kids in a private school. I have a pretty big nut to handle here, and I am effectively self-employed. I am a career freelancer. And we are all now sitting at home, scratching our heads and wondering what's going to happen. And each one of our circumstances are different. But what we need to do is we need to figure out how to not only deal with the change in terms of being in an environment, your home, every single day, all day, and some of you are going to have families, some of you are going to be alone, some of you are going to have partners, but you have to sort that part of it out. But at the same time, you also have to figure out, what are you going to do as an individual to make sure that you have sanity when it comes to what you are doing. And that sounds kind of, weird, but what I mean is you kind of have to start, for your own sake, I think, look to the future. And with uncertainty, no doubt, we don't know exactly what's happening. As Shiznat said, are they really going to write checks to every adult for $1,000? I don't know. That would be ridiculous. I can't do a lot with $1,000, to be honest with you. I want to know that I can have my mortgage deferred for 6 months, and then I can pay that at the end of my loan, not have it, a forbearance, but a deferment. but there's a lot of things happening here. I'm in the state of Oregon. Washington is above me. That's considered disaster, and anybody can, if they're qualified, apply for a small business loan through the SBA. But in my county, we can't right now until it's either at government level, federally or statewide. It's declared a disaster location, not an emergency. It has to be a disaster, which is all weird. Yeah, so Trevor says people should be less concerned. Ultimately, the government will have to figure out a way to service the debt incurred during the shutdown. There is truth to that, but when it comes to service-based industries, it's a domino effect, right? So you have a real estate owner, and they own a city block of buildings in a town or a city, and inside of there are tenants, and there are also businesses that are on the ground level, brick and mortar. Primarily nowadays, we're talking about bars and restaurants, and maybe some shops and things like that, and basically what happens is, okay, you could say the person who owns that building, who's running a business, should allow the people who are renting, apartments or flats from them, and also the shops that are downstairs, but basically just say, okay, we're going to reset when this is all over. But you don't know when it's all over. And then how do they survive? And then, of course, the big problem is us, when we talk about being employed either by an outside company, which is pretty typical. Thank goodness I don't have employees right now, but I do have friends who run businesses, and they are dealing with things that are unimaginable, because they're having to figure out ways that they can either support the people that they're employing, or if they see that there's zero income coming in, they have to start making hard decisions. So ultimately, yes, the government has to come in and step up. I don't know to what degree they will in each country. But it's going to be a really interesting sort of, thing to watch. It's going to be scary as well, but we all have to figure out how we can work together to support each other in any ways that we can. What's up, Mike? Good to see you. And we will have camera and flash today. It's kind of, I wouldn't say macabre, but we're going to do you basically, what's your essential gear that you're going to keep? Because it's kind of crappy, but you have to sell everything, and you have to still be able to produce work. So we're going to have a little conversation about that. So it's kind of happy and sad at the same time. But the idea is, let's talk about essentials. What are the things that you absolutely have to have? So I think we're not going to do lists, but Caleb, myself, and Ben Barden today, 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern, are going to all get on to Cameron Flask on this channel, and we're going to have a discussion about that. Trevor's only talking about debt, not loss of income. Loss of income will require income supplements, but there's no way to judge the size. Yeah, I agree, Trevor. I don't know where you're based, but the problem is that, you're here in the States, mentioning Congress. But it's going to be different for everybody. I mean, there's definitely people here on the chat who come from other parts of the world, and the way their governments handle it will be better or worse than they're handled in the United States. And there's so many unknowns right now for every single person here. What I'm interested in is what I'm going to be and what you're going to be doing for the foreseeable future to sort of either reinvent yourself or take the things that you've been trying to do and spend time doing those to increase your skills. So again, like Rob did with an app, the C47, he said, that's great, do that if you want to get my attention. For my own mental health, I'm reaching out to my friends and family to see who needs help. Errands run, walk shoveled. Yes, it's so important, Rob. I mentioned this in I think a tweet yesterday. Thank people who are in service-based industries, the UPS driver, the people at the supermarket when you go to get your food. Those people don't have a choice at the moment. They have to be in those jobs. They don't get to isolate. They are interacting with lots of other people. And it's somewhat thankless. They're not only not making a lot of money, My niece is in that position in Scotland, but they're also in a position that they may not want to be, but they have work. But it may not be an ideal circumstance. So thank them. Check in with your neighbors. If you're going to run to town to go get something, call them and find out if they need anything. And there you go. Johan, I'm going to start selling courses. You bet your damn ass I'm going to start selling courses. I don't know if anybody will buy any, but I'm going to start making them. It's about time. I've been creating courses for everybody else for a long time. By the way, speaking of that, I just finished the production side of a new course for MZ Pro on the C500 Mark II. Still have to finish up the post side of it, which is just workflow stuff this week. And then that's going to get into post, as in editing. I don't know when that's coming out, but we were supposed to do it 3 months ago. It took forever to get the camera in. And so we shot all of that stuff, thankfully, last week before everything started to shut down. And that'll be a course that I'm going to do. MZ is also doing a really nice thing. They're doing a 20% of anything that comes into MZ to, I think it's LA Food Bank. So they have a nice thing happening. And if you are thinking about education, this is a good time to spend some time doing it. MZ Pro, LinkedIn Learning, I have 5 courses on there. You have masterclass and some other things. And, we're all going to be watching a lot of content. We might as well be learning some stuff if we're doing that as well. We're just past the LUT selling era. It's so funny. UK government. So this is from Small Biz Digital Media. UK government helping businesses, but not self-employed freelancers. Yep. Unfortunately, I think that freelancers are going to be the kind of, small business is essential to any country. In fact, it's really lifeblood. And small business is what we do, but it's also a restaurant. It's also a shop. It's, those types of things. And it really is, it's really important that we are supported. Unfortunately, I think that it's going to be things like Wall Street and market bailouts and the big stuff that gets handled first. And then, a check for $1,000 is just throwing us a bone, and that is not a good thing. So it doesn't lessen the blow. I mean, with 7 people in my house, feeding them 3 times a day, I'm probably talking about $1,000 in a couple of weeks just on food alone, right? So that's not going to do crap. So there we go. So Trevor says our schools will be using their cafeterias to prepare meals for at-risk populations. Yep. Shiznut's read something about Shane Hurlbert giving away a course. So that's nice. That's good. One of the things that I'm thinking about, by the way, is I really am putting this infrastructure in place. Is one of the things I do is I do a lot of in-person, on-location workshops. I do that for companies, organizations. I actually just a week and a half ago got back. Thankfully, it happened, and I'm back from Canada, where I was doing stuff for Global, which is Chorus Entertainment, and I'm finding that more and more, not because of just this situation, but more and more of my clients are asking me to do one-on-one. I'm also thinking about maybe doing some webinars. So what I'm doing, just so that you know, and I'd be interested to see in the chat, again, an app, the C47. George is offloading gear he doesn't need. And we know George buys a lot of gear if you follow George. I'm putting together sort of all of the pieces of the puzzle that are so overwhelming to me, but I think essential to what I do as a brand when it comes outside of just straight video production. And what that means is a lot of work. So the first thing that I'm going to do, which is I think important, is I'm going to set up a system with Calendly, which is a calendar basically booking solution, and also Zoom. And with those two, I'm going to be able to provide one-on-one training. So I'm doing that with a client actually that's down in Santa Barbara. I was supposed to travel down on Saturday. I was going to do 3 full days of training. And what we're doing is we're breaking that almost all of that up for online stuff. And then we're going to basically leave a day when this thing blows over, and I'm going to go down and do in-person, on location kind of practical stuff with them. So that seems to be working well, but that means that I've got to set that up. And one of the things I'm thinking about doing is for the community, individuals and businesses, is just allowing, I'm going to block out a certain amount of time every week, probably about 2 or 3 hours, and put that up on the calendar. And I'm going to do free 15-minute sessions where people can just have a chat through video, ask questions about, sorting things out, things that they might want to learn about, and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to probably do that within the next few days. I'm going to set that up. And then what I'm going to do is I've been doing a lot of research into, still going to do the YouTube content, but I've been doing a lot of research into online course-based platforms. And man, talk about a rabbit hole. But I have, I've done all Podia, I've done Kartra, Kajabi, I've looked at Teachable, and then in the end, it looks like I'm going to wind up using Thinkific, because I think that as a platform, it's got the right stuff that I need in order to be able to provide educational content to people. It's just so many bits and pieces going in there. So yeah, please, Chris is right. So so matrix therapy, it would be a lot easier if you put an at the C47 there, but what subscription streaming services would you recommend? I'll get back to some of the solutions I'm thinking about using, because it might actually be worthwhile to some of you too, especially if there's an educational component to what you're doing. Streaming services are, I'm assuming you're talking about educational. I think that what you have to do is you go on, most of them will have a free trial. I think there's a lot of great content on LinkedIn Learning, which is lynda.com. The only issue with that is over the last couple of years, their focus has shifted a little bit more towards the business side of it and a little less towards the creative side. There's still creative stuff being produced, but it's not on as a regular basis. So the business stuff is great though. So there may be some really interesting things there. I always subscribe to Masterclass every year. And one of the reasons that I do it, especially when they, over the holidays, do a buy one, get one free, is I get to gift one of them. And even though I don't go on it as much as I should, when I do go on there, I not only glean knowledge from different people in different areas creatively, but I also spend a lot of time paying attention to their production value and what they're doing. And that's always interesting because I'm in a similar space. And then I really like what MZ Pro's doing. I think that they're creating sort of flagship courses, and then they're also feeding the subscription with additional content. To my knowledge, I might be putting my foot in my mouth, I think the C500 Mark II course is going to be that type of content where it's basically adding value to your subscription. So there you go. Getting back to sort of some of the things that, Thinkific, Alex, is basically a course platform. So if you want to create videos and you want to sell them, then you can do that. But it's also pretty flexible in the sense that if I want, I can embed things from other places. So if I had a YouTube video, which was a shorter version of a particular topic, then I could embed that onto essentially, let's just say it's learn.thec47.com or something like that. I don't think I want to use Academy because a lot of people use Academy. You guys can put some comments in there in terms of what I should call it. Something.thec47.com. So you basically have a subdomain, a section of your main website, and people go into that. And then let's say, for instance, I did a little, let's say I did like a 5 or 10 minute video on the X-T4, but it was related to something more general. But then I wanted to create a video that was more in depth in terms of actually a particular feature, using it in the real world, more time in terms of the production. and I wound up with a 15 or 20-minute video that I thought was very targeted, related to a particular feature. Audio recording on the X-T4, or working with film simulations on the X-T4. So a little bit more in depth, as for less of, okay, here's my opinions on some things and some things I like about the camera. Now we're going to get into some real education. Well, I can do that two ways. I can do pre-recorded videos, and then that teaser video from YouTube could get embedded into that Thinkific platform. And then people could say, oh, that's interesting. That's worth 10, 20, whatever dollars it's going to be for me to buy that particular video. But I can also embed things like my Zoom consulting and stuff like that. So, so there's a lot to think about when it comes to that. And that's quite honestly, besides just dealing with the cluster that we've been dealing with, that's what I've been spending most of my time on for the last couple of weeks. We've both been doing it. My wife and I, she's the other side of this business, and we really have kind of honed down on stuff here. Yeah, so Chris says your local library will likely allow you to log on to LinkedIn Learning for free, and I believe that is true here in the States. The only problem with that is you're going into a public space, and whether or not those libraries are open. And whether or not they'll allow you to log in as being a member remotely, I don't know how that works. So let's just see here. Shiznut says a guy working with us once quit to start a funeral home. I guess he saw there's always business. That's pretty funny. So let's see. I applaud your move to bring more of your content to the platform. Will you be making changes to YouTube channel, maybe a subscription model? So George, the YouTube channel, I want to sort of stay the same. It's obviously in the description going to have some more links to things like being able to schedule one-on-one consulting, to being able to feed people to the course platform. And I'm really just trying to determine who that market is, because there's a lot of different ways to do it. I don't really want to go down the route of tasking myself with creating a 4 to 6 hour course, because that will never get done. So the idea is that I'm going to, don't even get me started on Vimeo matrix therapy. I cannot even, that's a whole, I don't mean it like that. I kind of do. I'm just, I had a plan with them, and I actually thought that Vimeo Pro was going to be my platform quite a long time ago. I'm very frustrated with the player in general and the experience that the end user gets when they're playing videos that are hosted on the Vimeo platform. So I decided that it wasn't the right platform for me. I like a lot of the things that Vimeo is doing, but the thing that I felt like happened about a year and a half ago, so you did get me started, matrix therapy, is they stopped really focusing on us as a community as much. And so there you go. Chris is asking me about Patreon. So, I don't have any real experience with it. I think I understand the way the platform works. I think my idea is that I'm going to do, and I may be making a colossal mistake here, because I made a colossal mistake 12 years ago when I started the C47, and I thought I need to drive all of my traffic for my videos to my website, right? So, and I was using blip.tv and everything was going there. And I did set up a YouTube channel, but I just didn't put all of my content on there. And I realized that, I made a colossal mistake, because if I was doing 5 videos a day every week, 5 videos a day every week for about 3 years, and if I had put all that content on a YouTube channel, who knows? I mean, we're talking 2009 into 2010. That would have been maybe a different place I would be in. But no regrets. I got Canon as a client, a lot of companies in the industry. I have great relationships with manufacturers in this industry, and I'm happy with the way things have evolved. But it's time that I take some of this into my own hands in terms of what I'm doing educationally beyond workshops and classroom-based stuff. So So like I mean, I'm very close to signing up for Wandering VP's Patreon channel because I listen to that podcast a lot. And I'm also trying to decide what are the auxiliary things that I'm going to do in terms of providing information to everybody related to our industry. You have to look at where your strengths are in terms of, if you're going to reinvent yourself, that's one thing. But if you're looking at what you love to do and you have to not completely reinvent yourself, but you have to put in all of the pieces in terms of what you think you're going to like to do going forward long term, then what I have to do is I have to David, invest in diapers, do it. Somebody's got to do it. You can't find any toilet paper. I have to decide, am I going to have a weekly blog or a newsletter? I definitely spend a lot of time keeping up on the industry and what the industry is doing. One of the things I love to do is research equipment. I help a lot of companies and individuals figure out what the right equipment is for what they're doing. And that's a part of what I do when I'm consulting with companies. And I do also help companies with product design and what they're doing with that kind of stuff. That's less of a broad base, oh, here, sign up if you want help with product design. That happens sort of more organically. But what are the things that I'm feeding and what are the platforms that I'm using, and things for you to think about as well. So, like for instance, I would say that YouTube is obviously the main platform that I'm focusing on right now. But at the same time, yes, I'm set up on Facebook. I don't think that's my audience, though I'm still doing some research into that. What I will say, let me just see. Here, I'm going to say show. What I do think is that LinkedIn is actually a growing market, and the people who are on that platform, while they're also on other platforms, are probably in some ways a more targeted audience for me. So what I have to do is say, okay, I'm going to continue to tweet for sure. I'll throw up some, pretty pictures every once in a while when I'm traveling on Instagram. It's not really my platform, and I have to focus. So I have to focus on 2 to 3 markets, potentially, maybe no more than 2, which I think I've identified. One is people who want to learn and get better at video production and filmmaking skills. And then the second one is video communication skills. And the difference between the two is there's a whole segment of the market, unlike us, that have no interest in becoming professionals in video production and filmmaking. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to figure out, when they set up a Zoom or a Skype call, how can they make that look all right? When they want to shoot a video interview, how do they make that look decent, sound decent, and those things? And I think there's opportunity there. There's obviously opportunity for you and a lot of people to reach out to educational institutions who are trying to figure out how they are moving to an online training and course room platform. At the very least, it's just the technical side of things, and in terms of camera and lighting and audio and things like that. If you have a bigger IT infrastructure, networking, capabilities, then it's reaching out to them and coming in as a consultant to help them sort that stuff out. Subscription based is interesting. It's not something that I have discounted. The trick with subscription based is you have to have, I think personally, because it's what I would want when I'm making the decision to subscribe, is you have to have enough of a library to justify that. And that doesn't just mean, throwing up old videos on there just so that it's populated with a lot of stuff. It really is about having a targeted, a valuable content for the people that are there. So for me to have a subscription service right now would be a little bit vaporware. I think long-term that can happen when the library grows. Then you can say, okay, you've got a library and you're feeding that library on a regular basis. But I think that in the beginning, and I want your feeling on it, it makes more sense for me to split down and say, okay, so I've got those 2 targeted markets. We've got video communication skills. We've got video production and filmmaking skills. I'm communicating to them a little bit differently. The education is going to be a little bit different because I'm identifying that one side of it has no interest in becoming a professional in the area, but they need these skills, just like public speaking and things like that. The second side of it wants to get better at their tech and their craft. And so so as a community, we can all help each other, of course. And, there's a lot of solutions out there. It's just, is my voice an important voice for a certain segment in the market? And so once you identify that, then you also have to say, okay, so for those two markets, what is it that I'm going to do? Well, number one, I want to offer more than just the courses. And so I want to have a one-on-one aspect. So that's why thinking about Calendly and Zoom and all of that kind of stuff. And then there's got to be some stuff that has some additional value for the user. Because once you've watched the videos or whatever the content is there something that's keeping you connected to that platform, in terms of what is there in terms of content? So that's why I'm thinking about things like blogs or newsletters. I'm thinking about podcasts. I don't know if that's something that I want to do. I like this when it comes to live streaming. I don't know if I want to sit there and talking to the microphone unless other people are involved. And I think there's a lot of people doing podcasts incredibly well. The Rode Podcaster's over my right shoulder there. It's fantastic. In fact, just as a heads up, because we've got 34 people here right now, I believe this Thursday, which is tomorrow, Lens Rentals is going to drop a podcast that I did with them. So I did it with Ryan from Lens Rentals, and I will post on social about that stuff later on. So I'd like to hear from you in the chat, not only about what you're planning to be doing to kind of either reinvent yourself, educate yourself, those types of things. But I'd also like to find out what your thoughts are on sort of what you would be most interested in when it comes to being one of my audience for content. Because we're all doing different things, right? I'm never going to do what Caleb's doing. I'm not necessarily going to do what some of these online subscription-based services are doing. One of the things that I've been thinking about is kind of starting my content in 2 to 3 different areas. One in particular would be the X-T4, because I just got the camera back yesterday. I'm one of the few people, and I'm not saying people are buying cameras right now, but I'm one of the few people who probably has the camera right now. And what I can do is I can start to create some content on the YouTube channel that answers people's immediate questions, but I can also start to create some more in-depth stuff. But does that make sense that you would go in and, you'd actually buy a shorter course instead of a longer course, and then you get to pick and choose, and then eventually, if there's enough courses on the X-T4 or lighting interviews or whatever the topic is, you could buy some together as a package. I don't know. So Los Angeles Public Library. Wow. Okay. Welcome. Late to the discussion, but I've always found your work valuable and would certainly pay dollars for educational content from you. I appreciate that. What would be the ideal way, Los Angeles Public Library, that you would like to buy that content? Would it be as one-off, shorter videos that you can then pick and choose? Would it be subscription? What makes the most sense? There you go. Johan is really interested in the process of pre-production for small to no crew production. Interesting. Okay. That's definitely something that I will keep in mind for some content and how to deliver that. I think that kind of content is more of this through maybe, that and maybe a keynote with some slides that come up, because that's and there may be, and I want to ask you this, Johan, more value to that being a low-cost paid webinar that people can then access because of the interaction and things like that. Oh, Neil, that's you, Neil. That now it makes sense. How you doing? Again, that's part of what I need help with, is if I'm going to create this content and actually do it, it has to have value to the people who are looking for, education that goes beyond what's free on YouTube. There's amazing stuff. I mean, there's content creators, we can all learn, but when it comes to focused education, then that's really the difference. It becomes creating things that, yes, I'm interested in, but they're less about, every week I'm talking about a particular thing that I want to talk about, but what is actually needed. Rob says, I'd be interested in content from you that focuses on the storytelling side of corporate video work. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, one of the things I was working with a client yesterday on was actually shooting B-roll, and talking about that concept. And it's not just obviously taking your interview and trying to find shots that match what the person or people are talking about. It has a lot to do with, by the way, if you're a professional, sign up for ShotDeck if you're not already signed up for that beta, because you have access to a library of content that you can use to create lookbooks, and also be inspired with the type of content you want to create. I'm not digressing or being non sequitur. I'm saying that what we were talking about, my client and I, was this idea that B-roll is really understanding that, a lot of the times when we talk about cinematography and we talk about camera movement, of course, there's always lighting and composition as part of that. But what we're primarily doing is we're trying to reveal or occlude, hide something, or we're trying to reveal, and then follow something, or the thing is already revealed in the shot and we're following the motion. There's and all of those things, when we're talking about shots, have to be motivated. We have to have a reason for why they're there. And when you're looking at creating content around something, and this is why when you create courses, you have to charge some money for them because it takes time to produce them. You want to visually show people what those concepts are. And if you're thinking about, for instance, using a wide angle lens for some of the things to establish, don't always put that lens at eye level, chest level, or just above. Think about putting that camera down on the ground or really high or from a different perspective, especially when people are not in the frame. Think about things like having foreground elements that are out of focus to create some sort of visual interest and some things to the composition, give it some life. If you have cars in the shot and it looks like shit, then walk up to the cars and, almost do like an over the shoulder and put the car out of focus. It's a foreground element. And then you have a clear shot of the things that you have. So interview technique is definitely going to be part of that, Rob, for sure. And not just from a lighting standpoint, but one of the things that I do like to cover in my workshops is conducting interviews and that whole process. And I think I have some value in that area. I mean, there's a lot of people probably doing things similar to me. So let's see what else. Library's still open. People need their books. Interview technique. We are closed, but lots of digital resources available. Neil, when people are a member of the Los Angeles Public Library, when they're in the library, do they have access to LinkedIn Learning? And if they do they also have access to it remotely? That's interesting. I'd like to know. Matrix Therapy says, I've enjoyed the way Ripple Training has structured their MacBreak Studio. Easy to search, quick tips that I can use to solve an immediate problem. Yes. There's some stuff coming to market. I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday that was pretty interesting, having to do with being able to search videos and create essentially closed captioning or subtitles. I'm going to look into it a little bit more, and I might share that in about a week in terms of that solution. I like what I'm seeing, and I'd like to take it for a spin first to see how well it works. Because one of the goals with all of this is also how easy is it to access this content? How easy is the process? And there's so many parts of the puzzle. I mean, it's like, yeah, you got to have PayPal, you have to have Stripe, you have to, think about your email marketing so that you can communicate with people. It's so many things. Oh, I'm on Squarespace, so now how do I tie this into Squarespace? And then do I use MailChimp for the email stuff, or do I use what I want to use, which is ConvertKit? Now, if I use ConvertKit, then I have to use something called Zapier, which basically communicates between those two different platforms. Thinkific, and no, it's just too confusing. Squarespace, ConvertKit, Thinkific. I mean, it's just a mess. So let's see what we got. And I love Ripple training, by the way. And I've known Steve Martin and Mark Spencer, who creates a lot of the content, for a long time. And in fact, we've actually talked about creating a course together, which I'm still not opposed to do once we figure out what the hell's going on in the world. David says, I've been buying lots of lights and grip gear, so I'm going to start to develop skills. Just got an 8x8 Matthews butterfly frame with silks and bounce cloth. Yes, nice. Do it. Spend the time to do it. This is the time to, to think about those things that, you're really interested in. And again, even if it's not staying in this industry, this is the time to work on those skills. I agree, Tommy. Lights are the biz, most important tool or tools you can have after a camera. So yeah, would like to see more content on lensing for sure, cine versus photo. Interesting, George. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that for the past few years, for me personally, one of the things that I've been working on a lot is my lighting skills, right? And getting better at shaping light. And going through these different phases of the ways that I like to do it. Don't use this as an indication. We'll tweak this tiny little room. This is a tiny room. I mean, this is, I don't know, maybe it's 8 by 10, 10 by 10. It's not a big space, and I will be in here a lot. So I've got some sound stuff coming in here. I'm going to rearrange some stuff, and the lighting will probably change in this space. But I think now that I feel, I'm not going to say comfortable with lighting, because I'm never comfortable with how good I am at understanding the tech and the craft of this business, which is what I love. I love the fact that I'm not comfortable. So I just keep working on learning, but I'm really starting to focus a lot more now on the other components of cinematography, which are composition and camera movement. And that said, it doesn't mean that composition and camera movement have not been a part of what I've been doing for a long time. And they are things that I do think about and I put attention on. But I think that educationally for myself, and then how that turns into educational content for others, there's definitely a shift that's happened in the last few months for me, where I'm really starting to think about the choices that I'm making when it comes to beyond lighting and shooting interviews in terms of focal lengths, and beyond, sort of like the staples of those two lenses that I'm using all the time when I'm shooting inserts and B-roll and all of that kind of stuff. And really thinking more in terms of, okay, entire projects and look and feel and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping that will, as that journey kind of happens, that I'm going to be able to share educational content related to that, and that it will hopefully have value for you guys. Neil says, yeah, for sure. LinkedIn Learning is free with your library card. The question I have for you, Neil, is, local and remote, that is. Great. So there you go. So if you belong to the library, that's one subscription that you're getting with that, with your library card, that you don't have to pay for. So that's fantastic. And then that frees you up to, spend a little money on something else. So Chris also makes some comments for Canada. I'm too busy with my job, so I don't really have time for YouTube right now, Victor says. Yeah, well, Victor, you have a full-time job, which I'm glad you do. I think you drive like a truck or something like that, right? That's what I heard. So David's next thing is going to be a good camera. Not that a D7000 is a bad camera, but when you're focusing on video, it can be a challenge. What else do we have here? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, and you can definitely work on your lighting with that camera for sure. Can you spell or link Thinkific? Yeah, hold on one second. Let me type this in. Thinkific. There you go. Kajabi is another kind of all-in-one platform that I was pretty much going to pull the trigger on. But I decide decided that the downside to that was the number of products you could have. You could only have 15 on the kind of middle tier plan. And that was just too little to be able to do what I want to do, especially if I roll it out where I'm creating these shorter videos that people can get. And I still haven't gotten any feedback on that. Love to hear that. I've got there we go. Mike says, with my wife now working at home, I get to do all the camera tests that I want. Yeah, that's pretty funny. You know, we struggle with family meals right now. Oldest daughter in college, other two, you know, in school, one in high school, one about to go into actually in middle school now. And it's just hard with everybody's schedules to do that. So the nice thing about what's happening right now is we're all sitting down at the table every night and we're having a family meal, which I absolutely love. We love to cook. And I'm thankful to, you know, and grateful that I have my family here. Neil says, I know nothing about streaming, but I'm looking at trying to put together some streaming content while we're closed to the public. Interesting. So, Neil, we could do like, you know, if you're kind of coming into this a little bit late, I'm setting up, hey, what's up, Small Brown Fox? Good to see you. I'm setting up Calendly and Zoom, and I'm going to be doing one-on-one consulting and things like that through that system. And that'll be set up in the next few days. But I'm thinking about having 2 to 3 hours a week while this whole thing's going on, where people can book 15-minute sessions. You have to download the Zoom app, I believe, or plugin for your browser. I would recommend Chrome as being the one that seems to be working pretty well. And then all you need, obviously, is just a webcam and something that has a microphone, usually your laptop or whatever. And we can do a 15-minute session to talk about stuff. So I'll do some social, which basically spits out the link to the Calendly thing. And if you, it'll always be Pacific time, but if you want to book a 15-minute for free, I'm happy to do that for this community and talk to you about things. So Neil, we could have a conversation about kind of some of the things that you might want to think about putting together to do some streaming content. I think right now, you know, obviously you need at least one camera, a decent microphone. Most of us have that. If you want to get into multi-camera, there's probably nothing out there that's less expensive and more intuitive to use than the A10 Mini from Blackmagic, which I really like a lot. And in fact, I'm probably going to bring that system into this space, and it'll go between here and the barn. Because there's going to be times where I'm going to want to show people things here, and I don't necessarily want to futz with, you know, reaching over and changing focal lengths on the camera, and it'll just be better to have a second camera on that kind of stuff. So I will say that the C47.com website will go through some changes and become a little more targeted over the next few weeks in terms of the things that I'm doing. But you can always go to, let me just put it, the C47.com/contact. And there's a contact form there, and you can fill it out. It'll come right to me. And if you just let me know that you're interested, then I'll make sure I reach out to you via email to let you know when the Calendly thing is up. Because again, I'm not going to be able to just say, oh, it's every day for 3 or 4 or 5 hours. I'm just going to block out a certain amount of time every week right now where I can do free 15-minute things for people. And then, of course, if it's valuable to you as an organization or a company, then you can look at extending that time. But I'm happy to answer questions and help people kind of sort stuff out. If any of your audience is ex-military, they have a year of LinkedIn Premium free. Interesting. Nice. And George served. Thank you very much for that. So Phil is asking, most in my area doing simple calls or text-based press releases, depending on where they are located. Yeah, that's an answer to Gerald. Good. Nice work, Phil. That's good. Yeah, we have to become creative, everybody. And by creative, what I want to say is that, you know, just because you are kind of putting yourself into a sales position, and this is something I've struggled with my whole life. And I mean, I sold dry cleaning ticket books door to door for 2 years. I never want to come across as a shill. My goal is always to create education. And I've always had to back off on being too pushy in terms of how I present things and what I do. And it's an inner battle, because I know that at least for a certain percentage of the people out there, I have value that I can provide that not everybody out there can. There's other people who can, but I'm not in a sea of thousands of people who can do exactly what I'm able to do. And that's largely just because I'm interested in those things, and I'm really interested in them. And so what I love to do is I love to teach people the tech and craft of what they do, but I also love to help them problem solve. One of the most valuable things that I can offer to people is when they are thinking about buying equipment. I by no means recommend that they buy the equipment that I own. What I do is I figure out what it is that they're going to be doing in terms of creating content, and I help them sort out and generally save them a lot of money in terms of not making mistakes, in terms of buying the right equipment for what they're going to do. Small Brown Fox was going to pull the trigger on the C500 Mark II, but may stall given economic situation. Yeah, I don't know if you were listening at the beginning of this thing, but I actually, just finished a course for MZ Pro. Still have to shoot a little bit of screencast stuff this week, but we got it in the can last week. It's on more than one hard drive, everybody, in more than one location, but the course is on here. And so that's going to be available to MZ members in the future. Supposed to be done a long time ago, but we couldn't get the camera. Chris says you missed the last minute or two, probably 10-1, my guess, maybe getting a drink. Never know. But if you're considering personal consultation for a fee, have you considered the Clarity platform? I have not, so I'll look at that as well. I think it's going to be Thinkific as my base platform, and I'm going to use Calendly and Zoom for what I'm doing. But I will actually add that. I have a document that has everything for what I call the C47 3.0, and I am going to add that on there right now, which is research. What's it called? Clarity. So I will take a look because, right now I'm on a lot of free trials, just testing everything out. And besides Squarespace, I haven't pulled the trigger on anything fee-based yet. But just to give you a sense of the things that I have to put together, it's Squarespace, Thinkific, either MailChimp or ConvertKit, Calendly, Zoom, and then Stripe, PayPal. I'll probably actually really start to put together a kit.co site as well, because I'd like to recommend things. And if you're a content creator, that's the other thing. Start looking at ways that you can increase the content that you're creating, and then also include affiliate links, because it doesn't cost the person clicking on it anymore, and then you make a couple of pennies and things like that. Chris, you can buy shirts and merch when I have enough people that it would actually make sense. I mean, I can put it up there. I just think it's so presumptuous. Going back to the sales thing. So I have to get over myself when it comes to offering things. If I'm going to put the time and effort into it, and I think it's valuable and it's targeted, I'm going to charge for it. But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to continue to do what I'm doing here on the YouTube channel. And one of the things that I love to do actually is I like to do the live streams, because it's a place where people can go without spending money. They can get answers to questions. But then if they want to really drill down and they want to get specific, then that's where these other platforms and these other places come into effect. I'm already doing that for a lot of corporate clients. It's just making it more broadly available for people. The beautiful thing is, if people don't want to take advantage of it, they don't take advantage of it. So, it's on me to spend the time and effort to do that, to see that. Trevor says, I've been thinking of trying to think about opportunities in and around education. We have a lot of students stuck at home that still need to study, test, prepare. Yeah, just make sure it's not what those kids did in China, which is they were using a certain app, and then they knew that if the app got below a certain rating, that it would get taken off the app store. But yes, I think there you go. What's Chris has a one hell of a webcam. What cam is it? Yeah, I don't know. GH5S, great camera. All interesting stuff. We should also, continue to have these conversations about the equipment that you are thinking about getting in the future. And one of those decisions might be, and a carryover to Cameron Flass later on, that you're reevaluating the big equipment that you have, and you're trying to bring your kit down into a more manageable situation. But because of a lot of the advances that have happened with smaller cameras, it may actually make sense. The thing that's really killing it still is ND. That's a huge one when it comes to these smaller cameras. I think that for a percentage of the market, autofocus is important. And so right now, when you're talking about the smaller cameras, the two companies that are doing that, I'm going to say the three companies that are doing that the best at the moment are Sony, Canon, and Fujifilm. And then you start to move on up. Yeah, it'll be a long time before you see that GH6, Victor Bart, judging by the way Panasonic does things, and they're focused on that S1 and S1H. Get over yourself. You have people who want to support you in some way. Hey, I appreciate that. Maybe I'll make some merch. I actually talked to my friend Slavic later today. I think he has a thing where you can basically create merch, and then people can just buy one-offs. I think it costs slightly more to do it. I don't know. I have to talk to him and to Caleb about that. All right. So Small Brown Fox says, normally watch this and Cameron Flass at weird times while working abroad, but that's all stopped for a while, back in UK for a while now. Hope things are okay over there. Just so you know, I have a large portion of my family is based in the UK, primarily in Scotland, some in Northern England. And I'm worried about them, especially the people who are older. And so it's shitty. What are we going to say? We will have a GH6 before the A7 S3. You might be right, Victor. The unicorn's coming. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere on some other planet, and they're doing something to do that. Yeah, Slavic knows. Come on, he's Ukrainian, and I mean that in the best way. He's a smart, resourceful guy, and I like him very much. He's very close to me. Actually, that's good that we're talking about Slavic. I have to check in with him today, which I will do. I'm assuming that his day job is not happening, so I will be checking in with him. We were supposed to be having lunch this week, and I think that's all changed. So Blackmagic 4K, I've never played with raw video before. Yeah, so here's the other thing. I often say that, I would say a beef, but one of the things that is hard for us as working professionals is that Blackmagic hasn't set up some sort of camera support solution for their cameras. Just so that when you're out in the field, if you're on a Ursa Mini Pro, 4.6K G2 or the Pocket 4K or 6K cameras, if something goes down, maybe not the 4 and 6K, but at least on the higher end camera, that there's a support system. That said, the value for dollar that you're getting out of those cameras, if you don't need autofocus capabilities in any real terms, is absolutely astounding right now. The combination of a Pocket 4K and or 6K camera, or one or the other. Caleb over at DSLR Video Shooter has a great comparison between the 4 and the 6K camera if you haven't watched that. And also, in my opinion, the Ursa Mini Pro 4.6K G2 Generation 2 out of the box is ergonomically the best camera on the market if you get the electronic viewfinder shoulder mount kit for under $10,000 for sure, if you're shooting in that style. But the thing is that, coupled with DaVinci, which is really not my thing, but go check out Alexis Van Herkman, and he's doing some stuff where he's providing some content on that. He's done some great courses, amazing courses on Ripple training related to Resolve. Is that you're getting Blackmagic Raw is the real deal, right? So, you know, and they've really worked on their color science. And I'm really excited actually about where Blackmagic goes with their cameras, because again, there's no perfect camera system. Nobody is creating something that is serving the entire market that's out there. But what you're getting out of those cameras is something different than you're getting out of everybody else's. And so that's where you have to figure it out. That's where I come in to hopefully help you figure that out. Like, you know, for some people, it's going to be a GH5 or a GH5S, but it's absolutely going to be you know, 6K or a 4K pocket cinema camera for other people. And you have to think about the whole thing. It's an ecosystem. You're buying into not a camera body. You're buying into an entire system that goes from the decisions you make as you're planning a project all the way to when you deliver that project to the client. And those are all really, really important things. So, you know, I mean, this thing right here, I'm sold. I'm a fanboy of this X-T4, but it is by no means the right camera for a lot of people and what they're doing. I'm in this system and I'm loving it, and I'm enjoying, the most important thing for me is I'm enjoying using the X-T series from Fujifilm. But it would be stupid of me to say that that's the camera you should buy into because I love the experience of using that camera to create content. It lacks a lot of the tools that that Panasonic is providing in their GH4, GH5, and GH5S, and you know that's really, you know, something that you have to consider. And the same with Sony. You know, Sony has advantages right now, but they also, until the unicorn arrives, have some pretty big disadvantages compared to some of the other mirrorless solutions that are on the market. It'll also be interesting, everybody, to see where things go in the next few weeks when NAB time rolls around and we start to see any of the products that were supposed to be released there, because that'll give us a little bit of a snapshot. Let me see. I would greatly enjoy videos about your experience setting up your streaming educational options, which providers you chose, why, payment options, why, etc. Yeah, so that's, you know, some of that I think is definitely the type of content that makes sense for this channel, because that's sort of the journey. I'm in the middle of it. I think by this time next week, I'll have a pretty good sense of how I'm setting up this space, and what I will probably do in the next couple of weeks, I hope, depending on how this whole thing shakes out, is maybe create a video that kind of takes you through some of the choices that I made here. And then again, setting up the infrastructure so that if we need to go deeper into that and really talk about it like Neil was, about how to set things up for your particular purpose, that's where you start to differentiate the difference between YouTube content and you. Because you're watching somebody else's process. When you do one-on-one or this targeted education, it's more specific to what you're going to be doing in the real world. We can be inspired by the content that we see. If we have a certain knowledge base, we can watch a video and just ingest that and start to apply it. There's videos that I watch now that if I had watched them 3 years ago, I would have been like, man, that was cool. I don't know how the hell to do that. In fact, there's videos I watch right now that I feel that way about. There's also a lot of videos I watch right now, and I'm like, that's a great tip. That's a little thing. I just glean one little thing from that video, and that becomes part of my, you know, oh, I can reach into that bag, you know, and that's a problem-solving thing for me when I'm doing stuff. The beautiful thing about what's happening right now, and there's nothing beautiful about it, is that, you know, usually when you do a 1 hour stream, you know, when the 1 hour hits, everybody just drops off because everybody's like, I just scheduled a freaking hour for this thing. And I appreciate that, by the way. Nobody's really it's not a lot of people, but it's, you know, we're here and people aren't dropping off because where the hell are we going to go? unless you want to open your window and start singing, which is a beautiful thing. Let's see what we got here. Would you guys trade C300 Mark II equivalent for something smaller to try to get some money back? I don't know, Mike. I mean, C300 Mark II is a great camera. I will say that the more that I've worked with it, and I've got some tests to do now with the C500 Mark II, it's a beautiful, great workhorse camera. It's almost 5 years old, and the sensor is a little bit soft, if that's the right way to say it. I mean, I'm just looking at the footage that I'm pulling off of an X-T4, and I'm like, holy crap, when I put a lens on there and, I'm in focus, that thing, when I blow it up, is just ridiculous. Soft is not always bad, and I really like the look. Phil's saying we might see a C300 Mark III soon. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, if you take a look at if you're looking at the C300 Mark II as a camera, it's been around for so long. And the reality is that they've come out with the C500 Mark II as a full frame, large format camera system. And there's no reason why they shouldn't come out with a super 35 millimeter sensor version of that camera that slots into a different price bracket. Hopefully that means that the C200 comes down in price and we kind of get a 5, 10 or just under, and then the C500 Mark II. So we'll see where that is. But I think it's smart for Canon in that space to have a 5, 10, 15 kind of, camera solution. We'll see where they go with that. What was this? Any video? Oh, somebody asked me about, so Small Brown Fox, earlier on I mentioned this. I've actually shot the majority of the training series for the C500 Mark II. Unfortunately, it's not for Canon directly. They're not doing that kind of content right now. So I've done it for MZ Pro. By the way, MZ Pro is doing a really nice thing right now. Anybody who is signing up for their membership, they're going to take 20% of that and they're going to give it to the LA Food Bank. So you can go check that out, and it's on social and stuff. But good, nice thing to do. So there's an answer to that. Please use an at the C47 if you're asking me a question. George says, I think it's a smart move for Blackmagic to make recording B-RAW using the C300 Mark II and EVA 1 via Video Assist HDR monitor. I totally agree. Phil says 0 lag time on the 2 Blackmagic cameras and the EVA 1 from Panasonic. Also owned the Ursa Mini Pro, 0 lag, great for live production. Yeah, and let's just talk about the user interface that Blackmagic has on their cameras right now. I mean, you fire up that 4 or 6K or the Ursa Mini Pro cameras, and that user interface is beautiful. I really, really personally like it a lot in terms of how you get to everything. Very easy on the touchscreen. All the buttons are big. It's very easy to find virtually everything that you have in there. Let's just say that it's the anti-Sony mirrorless camera menu. And it's definitely the anti-EVA Pro menu too, because every time I turn on that camera, I can't remember where the hell everything is. Oh yeah, Cameron Flask is roaring later on. Shoot, we're less than 5 hours away from that. I better get some drink on, at least for the show. Good thing is I don't have to drive anywhere when we're done, right? So a lot of creators have noticed drop-offs in viewing for their review content. I think this sort of stuff, live streams and less review stuff, will be more popular for a while. Yeah, I think that's true. I also commented because Gerald Undone made a comment about that, about his content seeing a drop. And I really appreciate it when, as a community, we're sharing that type of stuff. We don't have to be secretive and insular. That's a stupid word. We don't have to hide that, right? So, because it's important for us to understand what's going on. It helps all of us who are content creators start to figure things out. I think that part of the reason that viewership also, Chris, is going down is because right now we're all trying to figure out what the F is going on, right? So we're trying to just put some structure into this new norm for our daily lives. So it's hard for me right now because I'm juggling the family component of it and also the business side of it, and trying to make sure that my days are productive and important in both of those areas. The runway is almost always 3 times longer than you ever think it's going to be, but I'm working hard and I'm excited about what I'm doing, to work hard to put these things into place. I also don't want to make bad decisions. I want to make sure that the platforms that I'm using and everything else make sense to the type of content that I want to provide to everybody. And I don't know if technique videos will see an uptick, Rob. It's hard. I'm glad you'll be drinking today with us. I made the trip to the liquor store. I'm like, what the hell? What if they close the liquor store? So I went down, and I don't drink all the time, but I mean, I like to have a drink every once in a while. And I was like, I better get my scotch. But then I thought, not a lot of people drink scotch. So, the bourbon's the problem probably for a lot of people. So I got a bottle of Belvedere, and I got some nice single malt, and I think I'll be okay for a little while. I do have one bottle of Booker's, which I love, and I might break that open at some point. But there you go. Ben is amazing. Come on, get Ben drunk. Ben and I have had drinks together. I love him. He's a fantastic guy. It's part of the persona for Cameron Flask. Come on, we take the piss out of each other. And if you're from the UK, you're supposed to take the piss out of somebody. You just have to do it without malice and with a lot of love. And there's the line. You don't want to go too far over that line, but you have to have a little fun. No, I'm not saying, Trevor, that the C500 Mark II is soft. In fact, from what I'm seeing, that new sensor looks amazing. Can I say amaze balls? Why not? We say whatever we want here. It's my channel. And if they demonetize me, who cares? And I don't mean that. Don't demonetize me. I do care. Shoot. There you go. Apologies if you have already covered this, as I've just joined. Do you think companies will announce products that they would have announced at NAB at that time, or wait for the next big show? I think they're going to announce. But I don't know for sure. But I think they're going to announce. I think they need to. What's happening right now is fundamentally immediately changing everybody's lives, but it will change things now for good. They will. It will. There's no question in my mind that not only is our industry, but just in terms of how we do things, that this is a shift. And I think that it will largely, once everything gets sorted out, be a positive shift, whatever, use whatever word you want. But mankind's not going away right now, right? And there's going to be a very, 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 very small percentage of people who think that. As a species, we survive. We get through this. There's going to be some really bad things about it. And unfortunately, we're all going to be affected by it in negative ways. But we will get through this. And we, as content creators, are going to, if we're spending some time actually paying attention to it, are going to be the ones that help companies and organizations figure out how they're going to get their message out to people. At the very least, most or all of you have skills as camera operators and can light and can handle basic audio things. And there are going to be more companies and organizations that are now going to need people to create that content for them, either externally or internally as in-house. So that's really important to think about. And while it may not mean that you're hopping onto an exciting project for a short film or a feature length or a television show, it does mean that there's going to be work out there. And I think it will change the industry. And I don't know how long the recovery period will be. It's going to be a while for sure. But what you have to do right now is you have to up your skills if you want to stay in this industry. And I think this is a time, just like I have to get over the hump in terms of being a little more salesy, and you guys keep me in check to make sure that it's not getting ugly and sickly and makes you want to barf a little bit inside of your mouth. But I think that honestly that this is the time that if you want to stay in this industry, you have to start figuring out a way to be, if you're not the type of person who reaches out to people and communicates with people, you got to do it. You've got to be in communication. And this is the time to say, to any of your existing clients, because we all have different clients, start to draft up that email, that letter, whatever it's going to be. Don't make it a book. I've made that mistake before. And just a simple communication, hope you're doing well. I know this is a really difficult time for all of us. We have a lot of uncertainty here. When things start to settle and you start to think about how you're going to get your message out, how you're going to communicate to your audience in new and different ways going forward, I hope we have the opportunity to continue to work together and I can be a resource for you to do that, right? So at least put that communication out to your current and past clients, ones that you haven't worked for years, to have a nice communication. Use social media to say hi to people and things like that. I'm going to try to do the things that I've been trying to do for the last few years to set up the educational consulting side of what I do for the C47, because again, I've been doing it for so many years and for so many other people, and I'll continue to do some of that when it makes sense. But it's time for me to, I've been a career freelancer, self-employed person. It's time for me to take some of this into my own hands a little bit more. So you've got to figure that out. And I think you've got to start communicating now. A lot of companies and organizations are trying to figure out how they're going to handle things, not only within our video production and filmmaking industry and manufacturers, but every industry. And so they're looking at all of these solutions. If you have expertise in something like live streaming, get your ass off the couch, not that it's on the couch, and start communicating to those clients if you haven't yet. Don't just settle for being a day player, because this is an opportunity for you, if you've been thinking about it, to move into a different position in terms of what you can offer a client. If you have skill sets, then offer those up to past and existing clients. And if you identify a particular area that is, that is within your local vicinity that you think you can help people with, I don't think it's helping a car dealer sell their cars by creating a commercial, but it might be reaching out to your school district or to a local college or university, or certain industries that need to get their message out. Like we have wineries all around here. Okay, so they're closing their doors. They're going to do delivery service, but maybe it would make sense for them to have a weekly, live stream or a video that goes up. And Rob, future, we're thinking medium to long term. You're setting yourself up for not getting some immediate work, the $1,000 that the government is theoretically sending every American or whatever the hell that crap is. Thinking about how we have this opportunity right now with what's going on to really think about some things. And depending on your situation, I mean, if you're not in a house with 7 people and you don't even have that component, then yes, binge watch some shows. Yes, eat some of the foods that you don't normally eat. Be in communication with people that you haven't talked to in a long time. But take this time to learn new skills, but to also figure out where you want to be in 2 to 3 years. Despite the uncertainty, you still have to think about that. Like, okay, what is it that I want to be doing, right? Because we don't know how things go. We don't know if, okay, this is all done in 4 to 6 weeks and it never happens again. Or the new norm is we have to be prepared that every 24 to 36 months, it's like, okay, we're hunkering down for 6 weeks as a world because this shit's happening again, right? We don't know. Like, I had no fucking clue what's going to happen at all. So what you have to do is you have to set up some things that say, okay, so what is it that I want to be doing day to day? Obviously, I want to have social interaction and all that kind of stuff. But is there a component of my business that I can also set up that I can offer things? Remember, you're a content creator. That is a valuable asset right now. What can I set up where I can have a component of my business so that I can service my clients? Just because I'm setting up Calendly and Zoom so that I can offer, to help, businesses and people like that with consulting, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't as well, because you have your own clients, you have your own business. We're not all clones of each other, right? We're all different individuals with our own ways that we approach doing business and the way we work with clients and everything else. And, every once in a while, there's a tiny little chance that we'll be crossing paths and trying to help the same potential client. But, my viewpoint there is also, first of all, transparency. Secondly is loyalty, right? So like I've gotten work. I made one huge mistake in my career where I started working with a client who I had a previous relationship. He was somebody else's client. And man, that integrity decision was a bad one, or lack thereof. And I'm talking a long time, like I was a kid. I'm talking in my 20s, and I made a bad decision that was motivated by creating income. It wasn't a byproduct. Income is always the byproduct for me. It is not the main goal. I need to make money. I need to figure out that I have to like what I do. I have to enjoy what I'm doing. I can't live my life a different way. It doesn't work for me. But that one bad decision turned out to be the worst client I ever had in my entire life. Karma is a bitch, and it was karma times 1,000. And it made me realize that, first of all, our community is very small. Also, when you're getting work from somebody else, you always go back to that person if that person's client comes to you directly, because most of the time you can come up with either something that works for both of you, or you shouldn't both be working for that client, because that's just the way they do business, and that's going to come and bite you in the ass in the end. Yep, Phil, that's true. What do we got? Appreciate business wisdom, no problem. Boom, one short email I sent to clients letting them know that they wanted to communicate to their customers right now that I was here to help. Has paid huge dividends. Are you saying that is an email that you sent recently, Gerald? I'm interested to see, because if that's true, then that's great advice. If you want to communicate to your customers right now, and it's shifting, right? I have some educational content that I'm looking at creating for people, and some of that was supposed to be potentially, one of them was me traveling to Australia to do it. And now we're having a different discussion. I don't know if I'm going to do the work, but the discussion is I will produce that content up here in Oregon. What's up? FU asterisk K, Google and YouTube. Always love that. And Gerald, if you're still here, I'd love to hear if that letter that you sent or email you sent was recently, and that's actually starting to pay dividends, or if that was an email that you sent out prior to the cluster that we're dealing with. So, Rob, just to answer the second part of your question about how do I think this will change things for freelancers and big players, and you see, this is how live streams work, by the way. In order for this to move forward, it's these interactions that are important. It's you talking to each other, but this is how these things move along. The big players is a real big question, right? Because it's trickling down. It goes downstream. They have to survive for the filmmaking industry to survive. You can be a filmmaker and not be making films in the sense that you're telling stories, but we're talking about the big players. They're shifting focus. And obviously, a lot of productions across the boards have been put on hold for the time being. The hope is that as things start to calm down, as they seem to be already calming down in China, that we cautiously start to bring those productions back in, that there are measures to, and this is going to be the hard thing, that at least in the short term, that everybody is healthy and they're not contagious and all of that stuff. How does that play out? Look, I don't want to get into those discussions of influenza versus coronavirus or COVID-19. Those get into rabbit holes and theories and science and everything else that's beyond. Oh, that was the other one. It's science. I'm not talking about finances, and I'm not talking about politics, even though I probably did a little bit. Yeah, whatever. We've got our own struggles here in the United States of America. Yeah, Rob, look, you have to be willing to waste a client. That sounds ridiculous in this day and age to say that, but you do, because your sanity and what you're able to do going forward sometimes is dependent upon you identifying, that poison client, and being able to waste them, because the amount of time that you will spend on that client if you take them on, generally with the intention of just making money because you're going to be miserable, it's going to be so far beyond what you could have taken your time with and your resources for to actually go out and get new clients. So you really have to think about that. Send the email out Sunday evening. Yeah, good time to do it. Exactly, Gerald. But the question still is, even doing a bit of free work for a little bank of good karma. So it sounds like this is something that's recent for you. Not that you don't ever do it, Gerald, but did you say, yes, Zeke, I hope the same for you out slightly west of me are doing okay. Are you guys all right over there? We're fine. I have all the kids home. We have a couple of other people in the house as well. And we are, making a trip to the supermarket every couple of days to, once a day, depending, to make sure everybody's fed. But we got all the base stuff in. We got enough toilet paper, and we are just hunkering down here. And fortunately, we have some neighbors that are very close by, that are very good friends. And when, a week and a half from now, things start to settle, maybe we can go on walks. Luckily and fortunately, I live in the country. So, keeping distance from people is not hard. So that's a nice part of it. So we're all okay, Zeke, and I appreciate that. And we do need to catch up, and we should actually catch up over the next couple of days, and we'll just have a chat together and do a Skype or a Zoom call and just kind of, do that. And again, if you're coming into this later on, I am going to set up blocks of time in 15-minute increments where over Zoom you can schedule through a calendar 15 minutes if you just want to kind of talk stuff out. I'm available for anything. I'm not a life coach here, people. I can pep you up as much as I can, but really it's just helping you sort out some questions that you might have about things. And I'm happy to do that, and we can see where that goes. Some great comments here from Phil and also from Gerald. And there we go. So we're an hour and a half in, and I think we're going to let this one finish up now. And I really appreciate everybody coming by and being part of this live stream. I know that there's a lot of other people out there doing them, and some of them cross over, my time when they happen. This is going to evolve. I'm going to decide if next week is going to be a live stream, or it's going to be recorded content, or maybe even both. We'll definitely be doing Cameron Flask today at 3 p.m. Pacific time, 6 p.m. Eastern, and all three of us, myself, Ben, and Caleb, will be there. You never know about the interwebs. My internet was wonkadonk yesterday, and it seems to be doing swimmingly well today with live stream and everything else that's going on. And I did, in fact, also sign up for live stream. My big expense, besides feeding these people and figuring out if there's, all the other, hopefully, financial relief in the future, is basically buying into all of these solutions annually and dropping some coin on that so that I have this whole thing in place. So I'm going to make a big time and financial investment to putting this together. I hope that some of it has value to people, and help me continue to figure out how this gets shaped. Yeah. Good. Yeah. And hopefully this gives us some time to actually interact with each other. So I won't judge you if you have an Irish coffee when we're doing these things, or, you know, whatever, but it's not necessary. But for Cameron Flask, we got that coming up in 4.5 hours, and we'll have a nice time. Is that right? Is it 4.5? I freaking don't know. Cameron Flask starts up at 3 p.m. It's 10:30 basically here, and everybody, yes, stay positive in terms of your outlook. We all don't know how this is going to play out, and we are going to just have some fun talking about what would our minimum equipment be. We'll just call it a zombie apocalypse. We're not that far off from that anyway. And there we go. Time to set up a pay or tip option for the live streams. Can I do that, Phil? I don't know how any of this shit works. Let me write that down on my list. Man, okay. Pay or tip option for, I might not have enough subscribers. I think you might need to have 10,000 or something like that for that, Phil. I don't know how that all works. Woo, man. Sorry, that was loud. I'm excited about this space, though. It works. George, I'd pay for that. That's ridiculous. Let me work on this space a little bit. Let me take a look at some other solutions. I wish you all good health and that you're all doing okay on your end. Yeah, Gerald Undone has a lot of subscribers, Phil. I'm a bottom feeder here. I might be, as people say, an OG, but I made some bad choices back in the day. Wait, you don't want to be around? Well, hey, there's always live streaming, George, right? He didn't say that he needs to be in the same location as you. So it's all possible. Look at this technology we have, it's ridiculous. All right. You could probably rent a space out, George, right now. They're probably all closed. You just go in there. A10 Mini, 3 cameras. Let's go. Brian, good to see you. It's a long one, over an hour and a half. All the best to everybody. I'm going to push the logo. Love you guys and gals and everything. And see you on Cameron Flask in just a few hours. Take care. All the best.